My name is Bob Graybill with FMS. We're going to talk a little bit today about the payroll services, the transition, and hopefully answer some of your questions. The format of this, to prevent background noise, is we're going to go through a PowerPoint deck and the payroll contract. And then what we'll do is essentially open it up for verbal questions. And there's a little raise your hand button to the right. During the presentation, you can actually type in comments on the chat, and I can answer those as we go. But if you prefer to do it in person verbally, you can do the raise your hand for the end of the presentation. So Eric's going to bring up the slideshow here and shortly, and then we'll get started.
Bob, do you not see it?
I do not. There it is. Okay, it just popped up.
Okay.
Okay, perfect. So basically, I just want to go through some backdrop of FMS and the Raz transition, and then we'll get into the details. So first and foremost, I just want to say I'm very pleased. One of our initial goals, because we know the relationship really is between you and your accountant or your payroll representative. Everybody on the Raz team has come on board with FMS and have been transitioned over to our company. There's a picture showing on the screen of your team in case if you've never met them in person, but they're there up here in the picture. The two things that matter in this business, because we're a service company, is the employees and you, the client. So our primary goal when we had the first meeting, because we didn't know who you guys were, was essentially to ensure that the employees, had a smooth transition so that your transition is smooth. And I think we accomplished a lot in that meeting with them, and, we look forward to bringing you all on board, because it's a great opportunity to work together with them in the future. So let's go to the next slide. A little bit about FMS. Our core focus is the retailer. 95% of our business is independent grocers across the country. And we do have the other 5% are, obviously, as many of you know, retailers that may own hardware stores or car washes or liquor stores, et cetera. So, in the end, we have retail customers that happen to have, or retail grocery customers that happen to have other business lines. So the map that you see popped up on the screen is FMS pre, this combination with Raz. We've got offices in Toronto, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Nashville, Portland, and Northern Jersey. Those offices perform a various group of functions. The Baltimore office actually houses our IT and our treasury services, along with our corporate offices. So post the transition, if you want to pull the next slide up, we've got the Norfolk, Nebraska office, and you can see, it basically was a nice transition for both companies, because it really provided service into an area of the country that, we didn't have a heavy presence, and it, in the same breath, provided us with an opportunity to bring on staff that was experienced with retail grocery. So we service customers up into Canada, 48 of the 50 states, and down into the Caribbean, and actually touch a little bit of Northern South America. We were founded in 1974, so we've been in business over 40 years. The company as a whole is dedicated to grocery. A lot of our staff has grocery experience. We continue to grow, and actually we'll be opening an office soon in Florida, where we have a little bit of a, less presence, and going to grow that presence, and then also in the southern part of Nevada. You can go to the next slide. So the big thing that we really try and focus on, and with this transaction, is primarily to make sure there's as little disruption as possible. Payroll is one of those things that you have to do right. You have to do on time, because we're in an industry that people rely on their check every week. It's not a group of people that are making, $1 million a year and don't care if their payroll's right or wrong. These are people that rely on those checks to live. And as a result, it's critical for us to make this transition as smooth and as transparent as possible. So with that said, we are going to continue to run on the Raz software system through the end of the year. You see up here some other services that we offer, including best practices, our supermarket-specific accounting and payroll package, so that we can properly track different metrics. This call is geared towards the payroll customers versus the accounting and payroll, but if you did decide to go the accounting route, everything is integrated. Your financials, the benchmarking with sales per man hour, different criteria that you can set up from a budgeting perspective, but it's really a fully integrated system. On the payroll piece, everything's broken down by department. We can track numerous earnings codes that you can keep track of overtime or any other pay rates you have or pay differentials. There's a lot of standard setup items. We can control things like the overtime the payroll maximum, so that if somebody fat fingers a dollar figure or hours, it will prevent it from going through. Just a little side note, and you'll hear this in your individual training when you start on the system. If you are doing a year-end bonus, providing a large payment for tax distributions, et cetera, from the business, you will want to talk to your accountant or your payroll representative to make sure that they understand basically what's going on as far as hours and overtime, so that that doesn't get prevented from going through. The best practices you'll have access to with your login. Those range everything from scheduling, budgeting, DSD receiving, front office checkup, different things that we've experienced across our customer base in the last 40 years that we've really seen as a best practice or a best way to do something, or a way to enhance margins and profitability. So even though you're only on the payroll piece, the balance of that information, the best practices will be available for the company as a whole, as well as back office procedures, et cetera, if you're doing the accounting in-house. Our focus is optimizing the back office structure to maximize profit. And what that means is we try and create an efficient system, but in the same breath, we also want to free time up in your back office and minimize staffing spent on administrative functions, whereas we can basically help you use that staffing and that time to focus on store functions, data analytics, and really understanding your business. Whether you're a 5-employee company or you're a 500-employee company, we've really found over the years, because we deal with such a wide range of size of customer, that there's ways to improve that margin, that bottom line, and get better control over your store. We work with convenience stores. We work with Pet Supply Plus, where owners have grocery stores in Pet Supply Plus. There's multiple ways to really reduce your shrink and increase your profitability, no matter your size. So another piece, which is more on the accounting side, is treasury management, which we help with the recon side and really identifying cash shortage issues. Doesn't directly apply to the payroll, but it is a service that we offer separate from the accounting if you are performing the accounting in-house. And then the last piece is, depending on what your desires are, we have outsourced services. We also have the ability for you to use the software and perform the services yourself. So if you decide to add stores and think outsourcing is no longer the right fit, you seamlessly move over to a software customer and are able to perform the functions on your own without having to go through a conversion or change, and all that history and data stays with you. So it's very scalable, whether it's expanding services, whether it's bringing services in-house to do yourself, or if you're doing stuff in-house, it's very easy to basically roll that out to FMS. It's very seamless. You can go to the next slide here. One of our key partnerships in the industry is NGA, the National Grocers Association. I know that Affiliated was very active and knew a lot of the members of your management team from Affiliated. AWG, very active. So both wholesalers are very active, and many of the retailers. It's a great opportunity to network, learn from other retailers. We put on a financial symposium on Sunday before the conference starts. some of the topics this year will be around taxes. There's the pass-through entity piece that will most likely be part of the tax bill, and salaries of owners will be taxed most likely different than the pass-through income portion. So it's important to understand how that's going to impact you and what that means to your current structure of, how you pay yourself, et cetera. There's also a lot of changes in depreciation rules and deductions. So that's one of the topics that we'll cover. We have another session on shrink and reducing shrink in the store, succession planning. So it's just a good opportunity to get out. Obviously, there's the show itself, but if you do feel inclined to attend, we welcome you to join us on Sunday for the financial symposium. We'd greatly appreciate you attending. We can hit the next slide. Part of the NGA relationship is benchmarking. You'll have access to our benchmark reports. We do one that really covers Canada, US, and it's broken out between Canada and the United States. And then we do separate surveys, whether it's the Canadian survey, there's one for AWG and its retailers. We break the national one out by region, by sales volume, et cetera. And that's basically so that you can benchmark against similar companies to see how you're performing. The real goal in this from our staff's perspective is, really helping them also understand what's going on in the industry so that we can be sensitive to changes. There's a lot of different research materials in the survey besides numbers relating around the Affordable Care Act or relating around operations and legislation that's going on. So it's a good read and worth reading. And once you get your login, you'll get access to a lot of this information. And the other thing that we can potentially do in the future is break down a survey for the Norfolk group, because that would give you really kind of a bird's eye view of your individual stores. So if we go to the next slide. So our leadership team is comprised of 3 individuals, myself on the left, John Klein, who's the Vice President of Client Support, and he will have a lot of active integration with you as far as setting up training. We're going to be doing regional trainings in addition to webinars. So we'll be scattering people out in various hotel meeting rooms across the states to try and get as many face-to-face meetings as we can. Some retailers, depending on locations, it may make more sense to do a webinar. Others, we may just go to the store direct, but we'll be making our rounds over the next 6 months. Even if you get a webinar training in that 6-month period, our intention is to get out and shake everybody's hand, whether it's at a food show, whether it's face-to-face. It's important to us to let you know who we are and to get to know you and get out to as many stores as possible to see your operations and better understand the business and the people around you and the competition around you. Dave is our CFO. He will be dealing with the debits, the ACH, the billing piece. I thought it was important to share the 3 of us on there because ultimately, if you ever have an issue you don't feel like you got a good answer to, you can reach out to one of us. At the end, I'll share my cell phone number, my email address. You can always feel free to call my cell phone. I travel a lot. I try and be in front of retailers as many days of the year as I possibly can because you guys are the experts and I really want to know what's going on with your business and how we can better help. The other piece on the staffing is all of us have been in grocery a majority of our lives. I've been in grocery since I was 14. I've worked as a meat cutter, sort of illegally underage, for an independent in the Baltimore market. And since then worked with A&P as a buyer, director of pricing, IT, warehouse manager, accounting. So I've spent the career there over a numerous number of jobs in functional areas, and then spent a very short stint outside with United Rentals, which is in the construction area. That was only 18 months before FMS had picked me up. John Klein was VP of Finance for Super Value. Prior to that, he worked with Scribner, Fleming. He also was working out in the marketplace that in the CPG companies. He also has worked with a couple of suppliers besides Super Value, as I'd mentioned, Fleming. Dave worked with Jewel Osco. He also worked at A&P and numerous other suppliers. Our staff, our Pittsburgh office, our Norfolk office, Nashville, Portland, we've got a high concentration of people that came from grocery. In many of those offices, it's upwards of 80% plus have some background in grocery. For example, the Norfolk office, just even doing retail accounting, not even operations, but we really focus when we recruit and hire to hire from within grocery because this is our business. Okay, Eric, next slide. So the big question always becomes, and a lot of the questions we've answered, geared around the things we're going to cover in these next couple slides. We've gotten back about 90% of the paperwork. The remaining 10% is a mix of we haven't received anything, or we've received debit authorizations and contracts and not the tax power of attorney or other missing pieces. So it is important. We set a deadline for tomorrow, but we wanted to do this webinar, the webinars today and tomorrow, to answer any last minute questions. Again, type any questions into chat, and Eric, feel free to interrupt me if anything pops up, or you can wait and do it verbally at the end, or you can call my cell phone directly, or email me or text me, and I'll answer your question. So what will change? As if you're like me, you've already read ahead, but the fee structure is basically staying the same. The exceptions to that are going to be the direct deposit fee, and that is a pass-through fee that banks charge. When we spoke with AWG, they were talking about, some of the changes they were looking at, and these were some of the concerns we brought up with the acquisition of this business. The average, where it says $15 payroll, that is an average, and we'll see that list on the contract. It goes down as low as, I believe, $9 and as high as really infinity, because we do have some customers out there that have, 1,000 employees. We've got customers out there with 3 employees. So the direct deposit fee is based on the range of the number of employees, but that fee will be a new fee, and we will not start that until 1/1 of 18. The FMS user license, that's for the software and software access, and that is a third-party product that does the web piece. That $340, we are not charging the first year, because we know with the changeover, especially if you're doing paper payroll checks, you had a little bit of float with AWG where they were charging you on your statement the following week. So we really wanted this to be a no-cost upfront setup. We basically decided internally that the direct deposit fee until 1/1 would be on us, and that the seat licenses that we had to purchase will be on us until November of next year. That was done strictly, to make sure that, with the cash flow switch, et cetera, we weren't just throwing additional burden on you. So outside of the direct deposit and license fee, if we go to the next slide, we've got the truck mail. So AWG is discontinuing the truck mail in 6 months as part of the temporary service agreement. So your software and everything stays the same until January 1st. Your delivery stays the same for 6 months. After that, we will have to find another method for delivery. The first thing that pops in everybody's head is shipping via third-party carrier and the cost of a FedEx or UPS. So we've got some solutions from a technology standpoint that can eliminate that cost altogether. And we basically offer a paperless payroll, and that has a web portal for the employees to get access to their pay stubs. Their W-2s also come out on the web portal. And then if they don't have direct deposit, which obviously, you would hope most do, but we know there's people that aren't bankable, and then there's other people that just don't like banks and they like to cash their check. We have a pay card, and the pay card offers the opportunity to essentially pay the employee. They can do an electronic check transaction that will allow them to cash their check at no charge, and take their whole check out. Or they can use the card just like you do any other debit pay, swipe it at the POS register, buy stuff online with it, etc. State laws in many states require at least one method to cash the entire check and not in increments. Whereas if you paid somebody $313 and they can only take out $300 in the ATM fee free, which is what some of the pay cards were offering, it didn't meet a lot of the state law requirements. So this gives you that one opportunity to withdraw your whole check at no charge. You can use it POS, et cetera, no charge. Now, if they want to use an ATM, the same rules apply. There's a network of ATMs, just like with your bank. And if you use a different ATM machine, you get dinged with a fee from that bank and oftentimes your home bank. So it is an opportunity to offer zero delivery, zero paper. Your reports are going to come out online already, unless if you choose to get paper. So it's a way that we can eliminate that shipping fee with no cost. You will notice in the contract there is a 10-cent weekly, 20-cent biweekly payroll for the employee portal. Because of the truck mail, that is waived. So the only additional fees would be the annual seat license fee and the direct deposit fee. So the shipping we can eliminate through technology. So if you want to hit the next slide, Eric. So the methods, what will change in the methods? Because we've gotten this question from numerous people. If you're currently on the payroll ACH sweep with AWG, the only thing that's going to change is FMS is going to be sweeping. Initially, you won't even notice that because, at least not in a major degree, because it's still going to be rolling through Wells Fargo. Eventually, it will be coming through PNC. But if you're on the ACH sweep for payroll because you have direct deposit already, there's nothing significantly changing. You might see a different name or number on your bank statement as far as account number registering of who's debiting. If you're billed for payroll through the AWG statement, these are paper checks, people not on direct deposit. We will begin debiting your payroll runs for the week beginning 11/6. So what that means is, and this is where I talked about not wanting to charge the license fee on the first year, is right now you have some cash float available to you through AWG, where AWG essentially is cutting your payroll checks and then billing you out on the statement of what you don't pay to the following week. Eric, we lost the screen. So what that essentially means for you is that you've got the ability to pick up a little bit of time here. That's why we had sent the letter out 2 weeks ago, to allow you to plan a little bit for the payroll and the fact that you are going to lose a few days cash float. When we get into the payroll contract, then we'll actually cover, the debits, what things we can do for you, for example, FUTA, SUTA, et cetera. The next steps on the information. So all the Raz staff has signed on and accepted employment with FMS. Through December 2017, we're going to be setting up the regional training, as I discussed, on the software. We'll be reaching out to each of you to talk about the different regional trainings, some on-site trainings and webinar trainings. We also have a YouTube channel and different webinars out there that you can look at on different topics, including training if you want to just peruse through that in the interim until you have your live training, or you need to go back and reference that. Also on our main 800 number, the help desk, you'll hear an option for option 2. They can always assist in addition to your primary contact. I think what you're going to find, and we put the line in here, generally there are more similarities than differences. From the core base offering, especially on the payroll side, I think what you're really going to see is additional features that are available to you as part of your regular weekly fee. If you decide to come on board with accounting, you're going to see a tremendous amount of resources and knowledge in the industry as far as being able to evaluate your financials. And we're going to be cutting the financial turnaround to 10 business days to 20 business days, depending on how quick you get information to us. So I don't think we're going to see a lot of change. The reason why we left a lot of basically stuff the same, including staying on the existing system, we understand this is the holidays. This is your busiest time of year. We don't want to cause disruption and sit there and have to try and move you to a different system when these are your a lot of your guys' key sales weeks with Thanksgiving and Christmas, and even into New Year's with the bowl games and the college football games. So we're trying to be very aware because we know that this is an important time. So least disruption as possible, and then we'll start to make the changes next year. Again, the core work, the core function is going to stay the same. It's really going to be a matter of how much you want to utilize some of the extra resources that we have that are offered as part of your service fee. So January 2018, we'll begin using the FMS system and to provide the payroll, and for those on accounting, the accounting services. Your year-end 2017 financials will be completed on the retail accounting system if you're an accounting customer happen to join this call. So go to the next slide. And again, the contact information, you can also see different articles and publications out there by going either to our LinkedIn, the Facebook. We do what's called the Weekly Pulse, which shows change in retailer sales. If you get the Shelby report, there's a regional one in there that shows sales increases and decreases for independents across the country. Our website is fmssolutions.com. My email's on there, and if you'd like a copy of the presentation, you can email Eric. He actually handles the marketing for the company and is a good resource for any presentations like the benchmark study, etc. So let's go ahead and flip to the, I think it's last slide there. Do you have any hands up, Eric, or questions?
Currently, no questions, but I'll keep a lookout on for any hands up.
Okay. So we're going to transition to the contract now on the payroll contract, and I'm going to go through that and talk briefly about the language and the fee sheet so that everybody understands, because there's a lot of extra things on there. Again, we provide service to everybody from a handful of employees to some people with 100 plus stores and wholesalers that offer services to their customers. So sometimes the contract isn't my favorite, but we tried to make it to encompass all of our customers, and so that if somebody wanted to add service, the pricing was there in front of them. We don't like to, the old car dealership way of hiding prices and then figuring out what we're going to charge. Everything's spelled out, and that's why it shows up. It can be a little daunting, if you're paying $150 a week and there's a, bill back interface for a wholesale system listed on there for $5,000, and you're thinking, God, what do these people charge? That would be something that a large company who supplies out of their own warehouse might have built. So with the payroll service agreement, the first part is a little bit of legalese. Basically, just talks about the fee structure, liability, the fact that we're an independent contractor doesn't signify that we've gone into any kind of joint venture, all the boilerplate stuff that attorneys unfortunately come up with. It talks about the payroll services on the bottom right quarter, that you'll get the pressure sealed checks with your electronic signature, or in the case if you're going to continue to run on our bank account, our electronic signature, payroll check register distribution report, deduction reports, direct deposit reports. If you're still manually doing your payroll, we can provide timesheets. You'll have online capability where you can ask your representative to pull deduction history, employee earnings history, one-line listings. We also have about 120 what I call custom public reports. There were reports that people requested over the years that we've built into the reporting tool so that you can go online and run those reports on the fly. You can also ask us to run them just as you would today, but they are there. We try and make the tools for the reports that we create for you every week available online so that at any time you can run those. The objective there is if you wake up at 2 a.m. and have one of those nightmares that you can't fall back asleep and you want to look at something, you've got the accessibility. Part of that comes security, and you'll find we'll send out some security best practices to you as we begin to roll into the system at the start of the year. We use penetration software that monitors IP addresses, making attempts to log in. If you try and log in 3 times to our system incorrectly, you will have to manually contact us to reset. And that's to prevent those, what they call bots or whatever, from trying to run through different scenarios of passwords. and trying to breach the system. We go through a penetration audit. I refer to it as a hacker audit, where we hire a company every year to essentially try and get in to our, what I call our four walls of the computer world, whether it's coming in through an old PC on a UPS machine, or trying to log in from the web from somewhere. But we take our security very serious, and we will share our SaaS audit report. I encourage you guys as individuals that anybody you deal with, whether it's us with payroll or a company you share banking data or an HR consulting company, that you make sure that they have the infrastructure set up, and primarily because of legal liabilities that revert back and can revert back to the employer in some states. We carry cyber insurance for those breaches. We carry that through Lloyd's of London. It basically is a policy out there designed for just that. If there's a state-sponsored terrorist attack in this country and they start breaching everything from the IRS and the NSA down the line, the purpose of those insurance policies is to cover a lot of the costs dealing with states where they require credit reports to be provided and credit reporting. So those are all things that we make sure we insure against, so that, God forbid, we've never, knock on wood, had a breach. But the reality of it is it's part of today's world, and you just want to make sure that companies you deal with have a cyber policy and insured appropriately. On the next slide, goes through other things like garnishment checks. Those we do charge a fee to cut garnishment checks and process those garnishment reports for you. You can do them yourself. It's a nominal fee per check, but we found over the years that they tend to be rather cumbersome. 401k reporting, we can create an electronic report for any 401k providers, and that's just part of the business. Time and attendance interfaces, we're working with a company. We're in contact with a lady that they service a good chunk of the store serviced out of the Norfolk office. While we have our own time clock, we've decided, it's in your guys' best interest that we work with them to create an interface that'll work across all the clients that use her. And then that way, when you look at the fee charge for an interface, you guys don't have to worry about that. We're going to get that set up for you. The direct deposit on the right, about a third of the way up on the right side, you'll see $9 for less than 20, 21 to 49 is the 14, 50 to 99, 33, and then larger companies above that. Over 1,000 employees, which does not apply to anybody in this group, we do transition to the client's bank account to push the direct deposit file. And the reason for that primarily is the volume of money that would be transpiring. We came up with an average based on total number of employees and number of stores of about $15, which was on that previous slide. But again, a lot of people will fall in that $9 range. Some will fall in the 14, and some will step up into the 33. As far as union environments, we've got a lot of features. I believe there's only a couple that have a union, but we do have the ability to set up unions. We have union reporting in our system. We provide all the federal, state, local, FUTA, SUTA calculations. I know today they're going into the websites and paying that out of your bank account on the local sites. We offer the option to have us debit the FUTA, SUTA each week and pay it for you at the quarter end. Obviously, that takes away float from you, so you may or may not decide to do that. But as of today, everything will remain pretty much as it is. And these extra services we'll talk about as we move forward, but we don't want to disrupt anything during the holiday time. That's critical for us. Go ahead and flip to the next slide. So basically we get into, if you can flip the screen, Eric.
Do you not see a change, Bob?
Nah, it's there. Okay, now it just jumped. Okay, you're good. Oh, go back down one.
This one?
So on this, you'll see the standard reports, checks included in the service fee, document retention rules. We'll retain the documents for the 7 years as long as you're a client. If you leave the services of FMS, we'll retain documents for a 12-month period. If you choose to go beyond that, we do charge. And the reason for that is there's obviously liability with Social Security numbers being held on file, et cetera, with the insurance side. So we keep those for 12 months, and then we'll obviously provide copies and everything back to you if you would decide to change services. But we will retain everything through the 7 years. If you're union and you remain and you're a customer, a lot of times those files we have to keep longer than that. We will, and those relate around pension calculations, et cetera. So essentially, we get into the fee terms, which talks about the FedEx, UPS, the bank service fees if you bounce a payment to us. There is going to be no direct deposit charge set up, which is when we get to the fee sheet, you'll see the one-time charges aren't there. Direct deposit transmittal, the signatures we're not charging for, the logo option we're not charging for on the check. So basically, let's go to the fee sheet rather than talking through what's there and what's not. So that's just the signature page, so you can go down to the end. There we go. Okay, so the one-time conversion fees, we're converting the payroll for free. The FMS software license for the first year till November 1, there's no charge. The direct deposit, signature, logo, no charge. The time and attendance interface, if you are using an interface today, we will create. In the future, however, we'll build as necessary. If you go with the FMS clock, that's included as part. The per check fee, and this is an example contract, 13 employees, 30 cents a check, $3.90. The tax fee is $17.50, and then the direct deposit fee of $9 for $30.40. There's no charge for year-end W-2s, copies of W-2s. If you want paper copies, we do charge because it's a lot of paper and a lot of shipping. So we do have CDs that we have secured that are encrypted and password protected. Those we do send out at no charge just so you have a copy. And the reprint requests are for future years. So if we're in 2017, we wrap up 17, and all of a sudden in 2019, you're like, I need some copies of W-2s. We basically charge based on the year because we have to go back to the archive. Shipping charges, we talked about, FedEx will apply. So long and short of it, your payroll fee, with the exception of the direct deposit in year 1, is going to stay the same if you go on the paperless payroll. If you don't go on paperless payroll, there will be shipping. Overall, I will say we price ourselves against other payroll companies, and we typically range anywhere from 40 to 60% cheaper. And the reality is we're dealing in the grocery industry with low margins, and a lot of these companies aren't used to that. We're a very secure company. We carry the insurance if there's issues. If we make a mistake on the taxes, we stand behind it. There have been a lot of instances of funds going out of companies over the years that people have absconded with those funds and not paid the taxes. So it's just very important that you understand, and we felt like it was important to talk about who we are, talk about the insurances, talk about the coverage we have and how serious we take this, because it's very important to us that you're protected, because ultimately, as you guys know, the grocery industry is very small, and one mistake with one customer, even with one store, spreads through share groups, wholesalers, and across the country. We understand that we need to take care of you and make sure that this goes right so that you like what you've gotten into. So that gets us to the forms. We just went through the contract. We've got about 90% of the contracts. I think I might have mentioned that before. The 10% that we don't have are a myriad of direct debit authorizations missing, or the tax authorization forms to give us access to talk to the IRS to resolve anything with the payroll taxes or contracts. So out of that 10%, some have nothing sent in, and some have 2 out of the 3, 1 out of the 3. It's important, and I can't stress this enough, even we've gotten a bunch where they've signed the contract we need the debit authorization that's on the screen because of our ACH volume. We go through a quarterly audit with the bank, which is required by the Federal Reserve. And this is one of the things they'll say, show me these 50 customers forms that they authorized you. So even though, you know, a lot of the missing pieces of signed contracts, we've got to have the direct debit authorization because we really can't move forward with a debit without that. AWG is doing it now because they have that through affiliated in the wholesale side. So we really, really need to make sure we get this, and we'll be reaching out to those missing independently. But just because you sign the contract without the direct debit authorization, that's critical because of the level of scrutiny we go through. Yeah, so feel free to call me again on my cell phone. In the letter, you have John Klein's cell phone number and my cell phone number. You know, I had one retailer say, well, I just wanted to talk to somebody about some basic stuff, didn't want to bother you. That's what I'm here for. I spend most of my year on the road in front of retailers, and that's where I want to be, is talking to you and out at stores. So don't feel like you're bothering me. If at any time in this whole process or 5 years from now, you don't feel like you got a satisfactory answer from somebody, you've got my cell phone number. Call me and I'll get it addressed. And if it's an emergency and it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll get it addressed. In the past, we've had things get lost. You know, 9/11 obviously was shipping. We put people in cars. We put people in trains. We will get stuff out, you know, and we will deal with emergencies. And that's why it's so important. Call me if you feel like there's something that's not working for you, and I'll get it resolved for you. So, I appreciate your guys' time. I can't emphasize enough that, you know, we're so happy to have everybody on board from the staff. We're even more excited to have you guys on board, and we're looking forward to getting out and the various people from FMS and from the FMS team in Norfolk and meeting with you. If you haven't met with your team, we're going to make it a point to get a lot of them over to the food show. You know, we think it's important to develop that personal rapport. And again, call me, please, if you have any questions. Thank you all very much.